Ecosystems in Tasman National Park have high conservation values in many aspects. This video will explore this vital ecosystem. Start from the geolocation and the natural conditions in this area. The video will introduce the species in the national park. Then the natural value of ecosystem will be identified. After that, the ecosystem disturbance and habitat fragmentation will be discussed, as well as the effect of climate change. And finally, the current management of Tasman National Park will be reviewed. Let's start with location and natural conditions. The national park is in Tasman and Forestier Peninsula in southeastern Tasmania. It's about 1.5 hours drive away from Hobart. With an area of 10.7 square kilometers, the Tasman National Park is famous for its striking coastal sceneries, including 300 meters high sea cliffs and other splendid features of biodiversity. The Palmer's Lookout falls in National Park, and the climate there is relatively humid and cool. The temperature ranges from 6 degrees Celsius to 12 degrees Celsius, and the monthly rainfall ranges from 70 millimeters to 130 millimeters over the year. Most of the rainfall focuses on November to April. Therefore, it is relatively drier from May to October. The national park contains good examples of coastal heath, scrub, fringallis, and forests with high conservation value included in comprehensive, adequate, and representative system for forests in Australia. The examples of forests include eucalyptus forest community and a blackwood forest community in this area. 566 plant species presented in Tasman Peninsula, which are over 1/3 of the total species in Tasmania. Most of them can be found in the Tasman National Park. There are 3 pages of plant names listed in Tasman National Park and Reserves Management Plan 2011, prepared by Parks, Wildlife and Services Agency. Many threatened flora species can be found in Tasman National Park. The status of the species can be classified into vulnerable, rare, and endangered. According to the management plan of the park in 2011, there are 4 species are vulnerable, 14 species are rare, and 2 species are endangered. When it comes to the fauna, lots of mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and invertebrates can be found in Tasman National Park. In the Tasman National Park Management Plan 2011, there are 4 pages used to list the names of those fauna species. As for the threatened species, demonstrated by the following table, there are 4 species are vulnerable, 4 species are rare, and 5 species are endangered. Microscopic fungus is identified as a source of disease for many native vegetations. For example, this map shows the distribution of Phytophthora cinnamomych. They live in the soil and roots of plants, which include sideland, heath, open forest, scrub, and disturbed rainforest communities. Once the plants get disease, it will death back or death in a large number. Lots of vegetation has been introduced in this area. Some of them has become weeds, which invades the bushland and compete with the native species in Tasman National Park. The major invasive flora are marron, gauze, asparagus weeds, and blackberry, and bridal scraper. Since the time is limited, I just introduce the marron here. The first picture on the upper left is marron. Marron grass was introduced from Europe over a century ago. to stabilize mobile sand dunes. It produces extensive rhizomes, both vertically and horizontally, which give rise to its dot plants. It is 120 centimeters high, and the flower head may be up to 25 centimeters long, and it is 1 to 0.5 centimeters in diameter. The marram grass will protect the earth from erosion. However, the native grasses do not compete well against the rapid growth rate and the sand accumulation capabilities of marram grass. 2 native beach grass communities and 5 other coastal dune plant communities have been replaced by them. Some invasive mammals include European rabbits, black rats, house mice, and ferrets. In addition, some exotic birds include the common starling, the house sparrow, the goldfinch, greenfinch, and the European blackbird. The invasive fauna are classified into aquatic life, carnivores, herbivores, and birds. In general, the invasive aquatic life have a range of impacts including threatening native galaxies, impacting on recreational fisheries and aquatic vegetation, and causing nutrient enrichment of waterways. The invasive herbivore compete for grass, which will result in overconsumed grass and soil erosion problems, as well as a decreasing population of native herbivores. The carnivores and birds will compete with native species for habitats, and they will also invade into the local food chain and finally will change the structure of the ecosystems. I will take the European rabbits and the ferrets for example here. The rabbits compete with native species for food and shelter. They also cause the problem of degrading land and changing the native plant composition, which has been identified as a case-threatening process under the Commonwealth's Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. They also contribute to the decline of many native plants and animals. It is reported that ferrets has a negative impact on native wildlife by the process of predation, competition, and disease transmission. As an invasive species, the ferrets will destroy the established food web by hunting some native species including small mammals, birds, and reptiles. They also put threats to native animals as carriers of disease, such as toxoplasmosis and sarcosporidiosis. The natural value of ecosystem in Tasman National Park can be presented in different aspects, which include supporting services, regulating services, provisioning services, and cultural services. First, the supporting services. Ecosystem has value of supporting other ecosystem services with a lot of biophysical drivers such as wind and raining as well as the flora in this area. The ecosystem is very important to support the water cycling and soil formation. Second is the regulation service. The complex ecosystem components and interactions can provide effective regulating services. For example, the high forest coverage enhances the climate regulation ability as well as protects the land from soil erosion. It is also important to absorb the disease and the pest as well as the little particles in the air to improve environmental qualities. Third, the provisioning services. The abundant natural resources in this area has provided important provisioning services. For example, a lot of seafood has produced from this area. With different species, it provides many biochemical resources and genetic resources. Finally, it has cultural services. The Tasman National Park has been operated for recreational purpose. The famous Three Keeps track has been built and attracts a lot of tourists. Many historical sites such as Port Arthur is near to the park. Disturbances of the ecosystem in Tasman National Park has been caused by both natural process and human activities. Although it is difficult to categorize the reasons, we are trying to classify them into two classes. The disturbance caused by natural reasons mainly include the invasive species, pests, weeds, and disease, and the effect of climate change. However, the disturbance caused by human reasons include bushfire, tourism, and visitor impact, as well as the construction influences. There are three impacts of the disturbance. First, it will cause the change of biodiversity. The invasive species such as weeds will compete with native plants for nutrients. If the condition is good, the weed may dominate the land and resulting the extinction of minority plants. Furthermore, the spreading of microscopic fungus will also result in plant disease. Therefore, the disturbance caused by invasive species may decrease in biodiversity. However, the bushfire will wipe out the high plants such as trees. Then the small plants can spring out, which will increase the biodiversity of the land. Second, it will cause environmental issues such as soil erosion. The development of tourism will encourage construction in this area, which will cause environmental problems such as soil erosion. For example, the construction of Three Keeps track must cut down some plants. Therefore, the sand and earth are exposed to rain, which causes soil erosion. Third, it will cause a change of ecosystem structure. The introduce of the invasive species such as feral cats and European rabbits can change the food chain in this place. A small disturbance may cause a big problem. Especially the introduced species may change the energy flow and the interactions between ecosystem components. And finally, it will change the structure of the ecosystems. Human activities such as bushfire caused by camping fire will also change the ecosystem structure in a regional level. The degree of habitat fragmentation is moderate in Tasman National Park, and the fragmentation are mainly caused by natural influences. 3 points are identified to explain the fragment of habitat. The first is the eagle look neck. The narrow area of eagle look neck and Denali isolate the two peninsulas from the rest of Tasmania. Therefore, there was limited opportunities for animals move in and move out of the peninsulas. The second is Tasman Island. Located in the southeast of the Tasman Peninsula, the Tasman Island is isolated from the mainland of the peninsula. In current time, except for helicopters, there is no safe access for people to visit the island. Therefore, it is also impossible for terrestrial animals and plants to spread to the island from the peninsula. The third is near the remarkable cave. The connectivity of the landscape is stopped by the sea, and there are different landforms found in this area. There may have certain fragmentation of habitats. The Australia's climate has warmed since 1910. It may result in the change of rainfall pattern and increase of the probability of extreme events. It will also have a huge impact on the ecosystems in Tasman National Park. The global climate change will result in higher temperatures, increased carbon dioxide, and the rise of the sea level, as well as the interactive effect of ecosystem components. The diagram shows the influences in detail. The management authority of Tasman National Park is the Parks and Wildlife Services, which is a government-established agency. It prepares management plan and strategic fire plans for the national park. These plans provide methods to protect local settlements, visitors, and the natural values within the reserve. The managing body will initiate a plan to burn each year, which used to stop the bushfire spreading when it happens. It also cooperates with Tasmanian fire services when there are serious bushfires. Other stakeholders, including the local community, which have some kind of right or interest over the national park. Government bodies, which have some responsibility for monitoring or supporting the management of Tasman National Park. Regulation has been used to facilitate the management of Tasman National Park. In 1992, the NEPCA established the basic framework for the development of national environmental standards in Australia. In 1999, the EPBC provided the legal framework to protect and manage vital flora, fauna, ecological communities, and heritage places both in national level and international level. In 2002, the values and the purpose of each reserve class had been defined under the Nature Conservation Act 2002. The code of practice is an important element in conserving nature values and biodiversity. In addition, the management plans provide guidance in natural values conservation and economic development for the park. The management plan, which in place including the following documents. Except for the laws and regulations has been taken to protect the natural values of the ecosystem in this area, the PWIs also prepared plans for the national park. Within the plans, they have imposed some important policies both promote conservation and restrict activities. In addition, it has implemented the management plan by establishing well-trained staff and management mechanism. Controlling practice is also obvious since the managing authority updates the plan every several years. There are some examples of specific policies has been taken to preserve the ecosystem. In terms of plant disease, the management body use a washdown gate to reduce the risk of microscopic fungus spreading. It may not be effective. However, the public knowledge and cooperation of the visitors may be crucial to minimize the risk of disease spreading. In terms of bushfire, fire management must accordance with the fire management plan. The staff are well trained for cooperating with Tasmanian fire services when serious bushfire happens, and the results will be analyzed and incorporated in the next management plan. In terms of soil erosion, the erosion hazard and the status assessment must be made where the severe soil exposure happens, and this has been transformed into actions in 2011 when the management plan has published. In terms of visitor impacts, managing authority will limit the volume of visitor and the party size and put some restrictions on the camping area. Especially toilet should not result in the pollution of adjacent water body. Relevant actions have been taken in 2011. In terms of construction, all the land use must be approved by the director in accordance with the management plan. The managing body also has initiated the 3 Keeps track, which is used for finance the management of the park in the long run. Part of the project has been completed and come into use.